Hello and welcome to another edition of Fut-Afrique channel. My name is Briarn Mofokeng, and today I'll be joined by a man I used to call 90 minutes, no mistake. Yeah, I know, because every time he played, you knew that nothing will happen, nobody will score goals. Mr. Batabaire, good afternoon, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Brian. Thanks for having me. 90 minutes, no mistake reminds me of Mr. Silonduna, the spokesperson of Bloemfontein Celtic.
That's what he used to scream every time you're playing for Celtic, and that's what he used to do when you're playing, by the way.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I can take it in good stride.
Yeah. I mean, you are no longer playing football now as a professional player. I know that you still play football amateur level with some oldies, you know, and guys are just having fun outside. When you look at the landscape of football at the moment, I mean, so many things have changed. What do you think has been the biggest thing you look at and think, you know what, if I was playing, if this was still there, I would probably be one of the greatest.
Really, times have changed. Right now, I can with SuperSport coming on board as the sponsors of the Premier League, I think it's transformed and it kind of relieved the owners of the clubs some financial stress. Not if you have not planned very well, but if you have planned very well, it means that it has given you some cash in the beginning, which you did not have before. So with the better planning structures put in place, as I can believe in football-wise, you know, you understand your take of a club. If you're a Bloemfontein Celtic, then you have to groom your players, look after them, nurture them to such a level that maybe you can sell some of the players to bring in more money until you're able at that stage where you can keep your cream to start competing. So I can say yes, football has changed. The marketing part of the game has become huge. The interest of the fans has become huge. So I think the brand has grown in twofold.
Somebody gets to a certain level, we talk about them and celebrate what they have done. But it would be very criminal of us not to start from the beginning. Talk about where it all started. Who is Timothy Batabaire?
Yeah, I was a young man born in Uganda. I went through, you know, I did my studies in Uganda.
Yeah.
I think when I joined the university, that's when I was spotted to play for one of the biggest clubs, Sports Club Villa, and I was blessed enough to win some trophies, and I was one of their few exports to South Africa, and that was the time when Micho Selajovic was the coach of Sports Club Villa, and it was in those moments, you know, elder brother, young brother talk that he talked me out of going for my master's to give it a try to go for professional football. And here I am sitting before you as a retired professional soccer player.
You talk about how you went through Sport Club Villa. I mean, Sport Club Villa has produced other players, you know, after you and before you. Can you just give us some of those names that actually came through that school?
Yeah, there's Postnet Omoin, there's Dennis Onyango, David Obua went through the same club. So all the players that we can mention, there was Daniel Obote who also came around and also left. So most of the players that have been successful in the shores of the PSL have got a hand in Sports Club Villa.
Talking about Dennis Onyango, one of the most decorated players in South African football, but on the continent as well.
Yeah.
They've been won the CAF Champions League, the AFL now recently. So there's been one of those. When you look at football in the eastern part of Africa, you know, you play for Sport Club Villa, you eventually find your way to South Africa. How did that happen?
It's very interesting. Micho had one of his friends who turns out to be one of our super agents, Ivica Stankovic. I think Ivica Stankovic, if my recollection serves me well, I think was having coffee with Coach Pete Somsmani. And at that time, I think Pete Somsmani was looking for a future representative, replacement for Gaetano Temba, because he was planning to retire. So they were in the CAF Champions League. Villa was in the CAF Champions League.
Yeah.
And in their discussion, I think intimated to Ivica Stankovic that he will need a central defender. So in that moment, Mr. Ivica Stankovic did mention my name and said, no, we are playing in the Sekofa tournament, which then was held in Rwanda.
Yeah.
So from the recollection of my knowledge, I think Peter Musmane requested him to fly over to Rwanda and have a clear, one-on-one and a physical view of how I'm playing, and the rest is history.
So then you came to South Africa, but you surfaced at Bloemfontein Celtic. I mean, Peter was not part of Bloemfontein Celtic. He was part of SuperSport then, wasn't he?
Yeah, it is very interesting because when I came and did some trials with SuperSport United, so it was that time, Peter would meet me halfway. We could drive in the golf for training. We had a very good personal relationship. We so developed. I'm not surprised that Pitso was very successful. The likes of Pitso and Thomas Madigange, may his soul rest in peace. They had created a family atmosphere in the SuperSport United dressing room, that they would have a discussion right from not only getting the points, it is how you can uplift yourself as a player. For example, they would talk about the structures of how they're going to play the Super 8 and what the club is offering the players. Pitso would adamantly tell them, I don't want to see any player coming up with a new golf car when you've not got a house. It was that player-coach, elder brother, young brother talk and relationship that always transformed itself onto the field of play to see the positive results. And I think he has continued with that to be that figure. That's why the players play for the coach before the club, and the club gets the points. Yeah.
How did you get to Celtic then? Because when did your professional football in South Africa, which team did you play for first?
So what was interesting was when I came for trials, SuperSport had to travel and play a game in Sudan. And it was like, we cannot leave you here. Any other club can take you out. And then the national team, the Ghana Cranes, was playing in Burkina Faso. So I had to fly to Burkina Faso. So when I came back, when I was in Burkina Faso, Mr. Ivica Stankovic called me. So apparently Bloemfontein Celtic had just been promoted in the Premier League. And Mr. Jimmy Agusti had requested Pitso Msimane if he could help him, recommend a few players that can help him, keep Celtic in the PSL for their first time of asking, so that they're not relegated. So with all humility, Pitso Msimane recommended me to be that player to go to Bloemfontein Celtic. So that's how I ended up at Bloemfontein.
Siwele. Part of I called it a cult. It is a cult if you want to look at it in a different way, but if you want to look at the realistic part of football, it is a footballing culture.
Looking forward to having Celtic back in the fulcrum of South African football. I think the likes of Jim Augusti, the people of Bloemfontein, I'm sure they are, in one way or the other, there is a way even the local government must be plotting to make sure that we get the green and white back in the PSL.
Let's talk about life in the City of Roses.
Yeah.
You arrive, you come from Uganda, you get to a very intimate, small place, but there's massive love for this brand that is Bloemfontein Celtic. Who do you find then? How do you get yourself in a system to be part of the starting 11, be part of the team?
Look, it was a family shock, like in our country when we are training, we laugh, we joke about, and I'm in this training and people are serious, people are kicking themselves, and before you play a game on Saturday, you have played around 5-11 aside, serious competitive games.
Yeah.
So in those moments, I would play, laugh around, and and the coaches had an issue with that. They were like, I'm not serious, and this player is always not serious. And so, and then we had the likes of Jimmy, Siema, the hero now. He was the captain then. We had John Maduka, a host of players. So we had that issue when you sign, you're going to have to wait to get your permits sorted out.
Yeah.
So it was very frustrating. You train, you don't know where you're going to play, you don't know when you're going to get the permits. And when I came to the country, I was given a 7-month contract because no one knew a Ugandan player. So I was not trusted. So it was in those moments when you have to try and show people what you are capable of doing. So there was a coach that was from Greece, and he was like, "No, Timothy is always laughing." And then there was also Mr. Tony Dinabroga.
Yeah.
So they were debating whether Timothy will really play for Celtic, whether I should send him or anything like that. So it was between he's not playing, and so I could go for the national team and come back. So one time, Siema, then Captain Siema, made a comment like, but how can they call a player who is not playing for the national team? And John Maduka came laughing. He says, hey, you are competing with the captain. Will you ever play? Because this is what he said. I said, what? What did he say? He said, okay, I think I'd come back from the national team and developed malaria. So that day I'd missed training. So the following day I went for training, and there's this thing where the coaches say, is there anyone who wants to say something?
Yeah.
So I put up my hand and says, some of you are saying that we're not playing at the club level and we play at the national team, but when I start playing at the club level, you may not start playing again. And it became sort of a joke, but actually it happened to be true, that when I started playing, really, it was always very difficult to see Coach Siema, and eventually the Pirates came calling, and that's how he left.
Do you still remember your first game at Bloemfontein Celtic?
I do.
And who were you playing against?
I do clearly remember that game because after that interaction and training, I was reported to Mr. Jim Augusti, and he's like, who talks like that to the captain? And he says, hey, you Idi Amin. I said, no, Idi Amin is the former president of Uganda.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I know. I had a discussion with the captain, and I said, when I start playing, actually, it will be difficult to dislodge me from the position. And interestingly, that same week, my permit was approved. The same week, I was selected in the team. I traveled to Durban. The game was against the Manning Rangers.
Yeah.
And when the game kicked off, I played so well in the first half that Jimmy had to come from the VIP section into the dressing room, stop the coaches, and immediately chose me as the man of the match, first half of the game. And the rest is history,
Yeah. So, so you played your first game away.
Yeah.
When was your first game at home? Because, and let's talk about the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Remember what? The Tonolo Siema, he's from Lesotho.
Yeah.
It is literally an hour away from Bloemfontein.
Yeah.
He's been there, part of the Bloemfontein Celtic culture. He was Bloemfontein Celtic, because everybody, when he spoke Bloemfontein Celtic, he was a reference point.
Yeah.
The same as what John Maduka eventually became at some stage.
Yeah.
Your Moses Pandiel became that.
The Juri Merai.
Your Juri Merai became that.
Yeah.
You can talk about Petitinium eventually became that.
Yeah.
Keeper was Shaw at some stage. So you're playing your first game at home now.
Yeah.
In front of all those fans.
Yeah.
Vocal at the stands, and they can say you're doing well. So how did you adapt to that system? Because I know you personally.
Yeah.
You're a very spiritual man. You're very grounded. Literally, if you look at Celtic culture and look at you.
I think I would say they were the crazy happy people. These guys would start the party early in the morning.
Yeah.
I think some of them were drunk. They never saw the proceedings of the game.
I can confirm that, because most of the time I'll be asked, what is the scoreline at the end of the game?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And after the game, they ask you what the scoreline of the game is. But as players, I can assure you is that when you enter the stadium, you can witness that vibe. Immediately you have to switch off and get into the mood of the game.
Yeah.
You can hardly understand what is taking place in the stands because you try to focus on the game and what you're going to do in the game. So you try to lock out that feeling until again after the game. So it was always interesting. For me, what was very peculiar, which I'd never witnessed, is how the team loses, but still they celebrate as if they have won.
Yes.
That was, for me, it always perturbed my mind and say, what's going on here? And so many interesting things happened in Celtic, and that's why the likes of Jim Augusti, I don't know, but there has to be a way how these guys have to be brought back in football. Jim Augusti is one guy with his brother Ike Augusti. believe it or not, when they are happy with the performance of the players, even when they have lost, these guys used to give us a match bonus for the wonderful game, for the effort marked, for that display of the game, and that went a long way into creating that family bond into the players and the fans.
Yeah.
That it was very difficult to come to Bloemfontein and really walk away with a victory.
So eventually you move from Bloemfontein Celtic, you join Wits.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Because, it's rare when you find a player wanting to leave that atmosphere to go to a Wits team where the fan phase is way different.
It was a crazy moment in time. I remember our last game, I think we lost to Free State Stars with a big margin. I think it was about 5-2.
Yeah.
And I think we struggled, on the last day. That's when we survived relegation. I think there was at the beginning of the season, they brought in a new coach, Mr. Mitch Diabri, who had replaced Mr. Kabozondo. So what happened, I think, as a new coach, I think you go into trying to find out why the team was performing like that. So Mr. Kabozondo, they really identified some young players and fusing them into the team. So there was a struggle for the team to jail. And I remember Coach Kabozondo was sacked twice in the same season. So he was sacked and then brought back because there was also some element of... So he was brought back, then eventually they brought Mitch. So definitely, Mitch Diabri, you have to, as a coach, you have to do your research. So he went back into understanding the culture of the club, and I think he consulted with Mr. Kabozondo, and there was a sort of I can say in football, as a coach, you bring your own new technical team, and back home in Uganda, we used to say that the moment they start calling you senior player, you just know you're on your way out. So we saw, I could sense that, having discussion with John Maduka, and the first culprit was the Gary Goldstone. I think was shipped out to Maritzburg United. Some young players were being made to play ahead of John Maduka, and I was called into the office, and in this private discussion was, Timothy, I want you to be my captain. And I told the coach, Mitch Diabri, that thank you for the opportunity to be the captain of Bloemfontein Celtic. However, I will decline. And he asked me whether I don't want to play for him. I said no. It's because John Maduka is my best friend. He's still within the team.
Yeah.
There's no way I can take the armband when he's still playing. The coach got very upset with me. And he told me, and you have just renewed your contract. I want you to sign another 3-year contract. I said, yes, we have just renewed for 1 year, and the negotiations were bloody, and I don't want to go into that space at that moment in time. He says, so we don't, and I said, no, I'm available to play.
Yeah.
But John Maduka is still the captain. He's still part of the team we are training. He's my roommate. It will be really a disservice for me, my coach, to say I'm taking the armband from John Maduka. So I think the coach got very upset.
Yeah.
And from that time, John Maduka, myself, we never saw ourselves on the pitch for the next, I think, 7 games.
Yeah.
So we could train every day. When in football, hardly team A beats team B. Team B is already beating team A. So we had created a scenario that team B at this moment in time, we are winning all our training games.
Yeah.
And we created a scenario where we could celebrate, we could do all the things, and we could create an atmosphere that we could love and enjoy. And the team was really not performing well because there was that period of getting the senior players and the junior players team together. And so the junior players now wanted the senior players to play because now it was becoming hot. But the coach, he was on the right track. He's one of the best coaches actually, football-wise, but results were not forthcoming. So I think at that moment in time, I think Mubiala was down the captain. So Mubiala was like, Timothy, you need to start playing. I think that's the time when AB also, Walters was in goals, and Walters now, Postnet, I think, was shipped out to, what was it, Black Roberts, because they wanted now Walters to be the first choice and everything like that. So in that moment, there was a feeling that, you are not very welcome. So as professionals, you need to train. For me, what kept me afloat was the fact that I was always trusted to be at the national team. So I knew that if I train well and get an opportunity to be called to the national team, we have 2-3 days of preparation in the national team. So you're able to convince the coach that you're still in shape and perform that. So whenever I went back for the national team, I played a wonderful game. And then the question was, why aren't you playing at the club? And I was like, it's not my place to answer. So one time they called a meeting. I think it was the coach, the Jima Agusti, and they were like, Timothy, why aren't you playing? I'm like, I cannot answer that. I'm under the leadership of the coach, because every day I come for training, he selects his team, and if my name is not there, I try next week, And I think eventually Coach Mitch later on came to me and said, Timothy, I truly respect you as a true professional. I think what I was told wasn't right. And I think I made the team for the first time on the bench.
Yeah.
So when I was on the bench, it was very interesting. As the coach was standing up, actually me and John made the team on the bench. So whenever the coach was standing up, the fans would tell him to sit down until we are on the pitch. So it became uncomfortable. So our first game, I think with John Maduka and some other players that were not playing, was against Santos in Bloemfontein.
Yeah.
And I think that was our first win on that given day. And sadly, I think that's when now management decided to put the coach on notice that he should become now the technical director. And I think they brought Coach Owen Dagama on board. And then Coach Owen Dagama made a declaration that this team will never be relegated in a million years as long as it's the coach. And we went on to survive relegation. I think for me, that was the eye-opener. If ever I become a coach or anything involved in football, I think those are some of the eye-openers that I can take away from my career as a footballer.
Right, Tim, we wanted to talk about Bidvest Vets, but you never got there. You told us a very good story, interesting story. We'll be able to bring Tim next time. We want to talk about journey from Bloemfontein Celtic into Bidvest Vets, how that started, how that happened, how things were when he was there, playing in the national team, eventually calling it quits in football to focus on other stuff. There's always something very interesting. People always talk about some juju stuff being used before matches. We'll talk about that when we do meet up with Tim next time again. From myself, Briarn Mofokeng, and Tim Batabaire, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
To our guest for this shoot here for today on Fut-Afrique channel. Until we meet again for more of the same topics. We'll continue with Tim. That is just part 1 of it. Part 2 is coming up.